Hey everyone, it's Joy here for ReverseConfetti. I created 2 cards today using the dot-to-dot stamp to create a bokeh effect background. Now this dot-to-dot stamp was the freebie for the March release. I'm going to start with my first background and we're just going to do a little bit of some ink smooshing. I'm using Squeezed Lemonade, Saltwater Taffy, and Salvaged Patina. I spritzed that with my distress sprayer and just kind of moved that ink around a little bit. This is just a regular cardstock. This is not a watercolor cardstock. Now I'm going to dry my projects in between kind of each of the smooshings. Something I realized right now is that this background was a little too light. So I added quite a bit of water to my ink, which obviously diluted it quite a bit and just made it too light. So I'm coming back in and I want to make it just a little bit darker. So I'm just moving that ink around so it's not like those little squares sitting there. And I'm going to push my paper down in it again. And this is where I think you can really start deciding where you want colors to be. So I'm coming back in with that Salvaged Patina, and I want more of that color, and then the Saltwater Taffy, and then the Squeezed Lemonade, and I can just start pressing it where I need it to be. Like I said, I do need this to be a little bit darker because we are going to be using some white pigment ink, and obviously if the background is too light, you're not going to see that as well. So I'm going to dry this with my heat tool, but look at how pretty that background is. I love all of those colors together. Then we're going to do this one more time. I just felt like I needed some darker areas on top of that background. So again, I'm just coming in one little inking at a time and just putting those colors where I need it to be. And as you can see, this is getting much darker. So I'm going to dry this again with my heat tool, and then we can start with the stamping. So I've got a white pigment ink. I am doing 2nd generation stamping, which means I'm going to stamp my image, the largest circle image first on the dot-to-dot stamp set. I'm going to ink it up, stamp it one time on a scratch piece of paper, and then stamp it onto my card panel. So I'm doing that again with the next largest circle. It's smaller than the biggest one, and I'm just doing that same 2nd generation stamping. Now on this one, I'm just doing regular stamping. I'm inking it up and stamping it on the paper. This is a next smaller one, and then here is the smallest one. Now, I'm noticing that you can see this in the light, but it's not as obvious as I would like it to be, but I am going to fix that by stamping some of the colored ink. So I'm coming back in, again, doing 2nd generation stamping. So I'm starting with that Salvaged Patina, and I'm going to put it over the areas where there is Salvaged Patina on the background for the most part. Then I'm coming in with the Saltwater Taffy, doing the same thing, 2nd generation stamping and stamping onto the background. And then I'm going to finish off with the Squeezed Lemonade, and I'm just going to do this in all the different sizes of circles on that stamp set, all the way down to the littlest one. I think this totally made this background, and now I feel like you really get that bokeh effect, but it's all colorful, which I think is really, really fun and pretty. So again, I just used all those different sizes. Here's the tiniest one here, coming back in, and I'm going to just do regular stamping, not 2nd generation, just inking it up and stamping it onto the background. And again, I'm going to do this with all 3 of those colors, and I just feel like this really, really pops and really comes to life. So I'm going to finish that with the Squeezed Lemonade. Then we're going to go on to the 2nd background, which I started off differently. So I have my A2 size card panel. I am using black soot, then chipped sapphire, and then peacock feathers. I really wanted this beautiful dark blue background because I wanted that pigment ink to pop, which it does, but then I decided to add the colored inking on top of, which I think totally was a game changer for both of these backgrounds, and I think it really made it, or gave it that really good bokeh effect. So I'm just doing traditional ink blending, making sure that I'm getting a good blend between those 3 colors. And then let's get into the stamping. So again, starting with the largest circle, again doing 2nd generation stamping, and some of my images are going to be stamped off the sides. And as you can see, you really can pick up that white pigment ink, which is really fantastic. I'm going to start with that largest circle, go down to the next size, then the smaller ones. And I'm letting some of these images overlap, just like I did on the first one. Some of these circles are going to overlap. And as you can see, that bokeh effect is really starting to come through. I think it is so, so pretty. Now, something I'm also doing when I'm stamping from the pad to my paper, after my paper, I'm stamping onto the scratch paper because it's picking up some of that dark blue and black ink. And I don't want to mess up my ink pad. At the end here, I was forgetting to do that, and I did have a little spot that was starting to turn dark. Okay, so I'm finishing with those last circles, and now here is the colored circles. So I'm keeping the peacock feathers over the peacock feather area, the same with the chipped sapphire and the black soot. So I'm stamping those in the same areas, and I just think this was a game changer, and I think it totally made this background. So I am going to trim these down about 1/8 of an inch on all sides for both of these backgrounds and adhere them to a white A2 size card base, which is going to give us a nice white frame around these card panels. I am also using the Sending Smiles stamp set. I'm going to stamp the Sending Smiles and the Thank You sentiment. I will be doing some gold heat embossing, so I already have my heat gun getting hot. I'm going to prep my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. I'm going to stamp this first sentiment with clear ink and then sprinkle on my gold embossing powder and heat it with my heat gun. I want to make sure it's nice and melted, and it will be shiny when it is melted. So I just brought in a scratch piece of paper to collect my gold embossing powder. Then I'm going to flip that cardstock around and just on the other end bring in the second sentiment that says thank you. Inking that up with my clear ink, again sprinkling with some gold embossing powder, and then heating that with my heat tool until it is nice and shiny and melted. I'm going to trim this out with my paper trimmer. I'm adding a gold mirror matte to both of these sentiments, so I already adhered that to my gold cardstock. And then I'm just going to trim these out, and we can adhere these to the cards. I think these backgrounds just totally are the star of the show, so I don't think you need a large sentiment. For this blue one, I'm going to place the thank you right in the center. For that colorful one, it's going to say Sending Smiles. I feel like that is a perfect sentiment for this exciting, fun background. I will pop these up with some foam tape to give it some dimension. And like I said, I'm going to pop that thank you right in the center, and then the other one is going to be to the bottom left. I really liked how quickly these backgrounds went together, and I think the color combinations are absolutely endless, and they were just so much fun to create. So here are the few sequins that I'm just going to pop onto the background. These are some gold sequins. Just add a little bit of glitz to your cards, and then these are completely finished. I hope that you love these cards. I think they turned out fabulous, especially from just one little tiny stamp set. You can create these beautiful backgrounds. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching, and I hope that you enjoy this project, and I will be back with another video. Bye!